Hello, my name is Arlene Herson, and I am here at the studio of Lynn University on behalf of the Boca Raton Historical Society and Museum. The Historical Society and Museum was founded in 1972 and is a nonprofit membership organization dedicated to preserving the past and to enrich the future. The Historical Society is building a legacy in our community by collecting and sharing our local history. The current project is documenting the Jewish history of Boca Raton. And my guest today is Ida Herst, who is the first woman president of Temple Bethel. She recently turned 100 years old. She is an amazing woman, and we welcome here today. So welcome, Ida Herst.
Thank you.
I think you are such an amazing woman. We mentioned, and you are sharing with the world, that you are 100 years old. So before we go any further, okay, give us some tips. You're smart, you're vital, you're fit. Give us some tips about how we can all live to be 100 and be like you.
Well, all I can say is that I've worked at intelligent things all my life,
Well, you certainly...
from childhood on.
Okay, so give us a little background about what you mean by intelligent things.
Interested in all the people around you, in the world you're living in, reading all the time, all the newspapers, all the magazines, keeping up with the world as much as possible.
You know, that's so important because you are so aware today, so smart. I say you're 100 years young, not 100 years old, and you're such a good role model. So where are you from originally?
Well, as I said, I've lived a long time, and I've seen the world change and change again and again. Not always for the better, but the changes are what civilizations are really all about.
Yeah, oh, a lot of changes in the world today. You've been here 100 years, but let's start at the beginning. Where are you from?
I was born in New York City, where the Flower Fifth Avenue Hospital is now. It was an empty lot. And my younger brother used to play baseball there. But I like to say that because it's now a big, important hospital. And I was born on 108th Street, right there on Fifth Avenue.
Right, good place to start life. Okay, but even then, when you taught, you were so ahead of your time. I mean, as you say, you were aware, you were interested in the world, you just never sat back and let the world flow over you, but you did something very courageous, too. You were, after graduating high school, you entered the Columbia University School of Pharmacy. Now, first of all,
College of Pharmacy.
The College of Pharmacy, okay, but in those days, we're talking about the 1930s, women weren't expected to go to college. They weren't expected to have major careers. So what were your ambitions? How did that come about?
It came about because my father was a very unusual man. He was very intelligent, very intellectual, and always said, I want my family to learn everything they possibly can and to go to school and learn, and I'll pay for everything.
Yeah, but you know what? A lot of parents say that to their children, and somehow or other it doesn't connect. You know, you have to have that innate intelligence on your own.
I'm the oldest of the 4 children.
Right.
There were 3 girls and 1 boy. And I was, somehow I was very close to my father. And I knew he came from Russia in 1905. And he had no problem finding work because he was a pharmacist in Russia, and they accepted his work in the Mount Sinai Hospital, and that's why we lived on Fifth Avenue. It was not far.
You know, you were very lucky. You know, your father was lucky because so often people come from Russia or Poland or Germany or wherever they're from, and they cannot do what they were trained to do from where they came from. They come to New York and they have to take different jobs. So you were blessed in the beginning. So your father was a pharmacist. So what made you decide to be a pharmacist?
My father worked in the Mount Sinai Hospital making all the gallon goods. Those were the days when there weren't any proprietary medicines. The pharmacist made everything.
Okay, can I explain that a little bit? Because we go to the pharmacy now and we get a prescription, we get a pill, and it's done. So what you're saying is in those days, you didn't have pills. You had to mix the medicine yourself?
Yes, yes, and make the powders, headache powders, and fold the paper correctly. Yes,
Wow.
we made everything.
Yeah.
There was nothing that was made outside the drugstore.
That is
Very little. Even cosmetics were just coming in.
really?
Yes.
Wow. Oh, I keep
This
forgetting.
is 1910, 1915. I was born in 1914.
Well, I keep forgetting you're 100 years old. We take this for granted, you know, the fact that that was so different.
Yes.
Okay, so now you're in
It was a different life.
right, but there were 12 men in your class and 1 woman. Not easy to get in and not easy to succeed. Obviously, you succeeded. So tell us now, you know, did you practice at as a pharmacist
I
after you
grew up
graduated?
in that drugstore. Of course, I couldn't fill prescriptions. My father had 4 pharmacists and finally had 5. One was Spanish speaking because in the 30s, the Spanish people were moving into the area and they didn't speak a lot of English.
Even way back then in New York City. Okay, so let's talk about you and what happened. You're a pharmacist and you get married for the first time. You were very young. Tell us about Mr. Bush.
He was in a class 2 years ahead of me. I was in the 4-year college, the bachelor degree, not the pharmaceutical chemistry or pharmaceutical pharmacy. I took the BS degree because I had other ideas of what I was going to do. And at the same time, I loved working in my father's drugstore, helping out. I was 8 years old when he opened the drugstore, and I was there as much as they let me. And I enjoyed every bit of it. I think I admired my father greatly because he came to this country without knowing English, but quickly learned, worked at the drugstore in the Mount Sinai Hospital. They were so proud of him. He made the gallon goods for them and did it extremely well. And I heard all that. So my respect for my father increased tremendously.
Very lucky. But also you had respect for the first man that you married. His name was Mr. Bush, and he was a pharmacist as well.
Well, he was 2 years ahead of me. But we became very friendly, and he went to work at my father's drugstore when he graduated, and I came 2 years later. But we married when I graduated, and I got my degree, and I got my registration for being a licensed pharmacist. Then we married.
Right.
He got his, but he didn't have my 4-year education in pharmacy, and that always bothered him.
Oh?
Yes, but he was ahead of me, and I think he was 5 years older than I.
Right.
Than
Well,
I was.
you did get married. I know originally you had told me at one point you wanted to study medicine, but you stayed in pharmacy. You married
Yes.
young,
Right.
and unfortunately, at the age of 29, he died
He passed away.
of bone cancer. So here you're a young woman. You had 2 children, twins, I believe?
I had twins, a boy and a girl, who were very handsome, very bright, and I knew it. I could see that this was not going to be easy. It was going to be challenging.
Right.
But that's all right.
Okay, but so you were living in Manhattan. You're a widow. You have 2 children. Anybody can handle that. It's you. Now you met Herman Herst, your second husband, who you moved to Boca Raton with. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And you were married for a long time. So how did you meet him?
When my children got to be 6, 7 years old, I decided they had to learn something about being Jewish. They have to understand the religion and have to understand it. So I entered the Temple Bethel in Chappaqua, New York, where we lived. And they went to school there. That is Hebrew school. And as the years went by and they became youth group, I took on and I was still, it was about 8 years that I was still a widow. And at that point, I decided I would take over the job of following the youth group and influencing them in the right direction, which I did. And I met the other children. There were about 12 children in the youth group, boys and girls. And they all got along very well, and I could see they liked my attention and so forth. And one day, this is the story that came to me from Herman Herst. He said, I have to tell you how we met, because I was dating other ladies. My wife was already gone 3 years, and I was dating some other ladies in our knowledge, and and my daughter came home one day and said, well, did you like any of the ladies? He said, no, I didn't like a single one. She said, well, please, would you date Mrs. Bush? He said, for 10 cents, I'll do it. So she quickly ran and put a dime on his desk, and so he had to call me. We only knew each other in passing.
Right.
We never even spoke.
So his daughter's name is Wendy, and so Wendy had really good taste. She didn't like any of the other women.
Right.
So between you now...
And the minute we met and could have a conversation, it was he liked it. And so did I.
And I can understand why. So
he was intelligent and interesting and a good father, etc.
Yeah, when you say a good father, because between you had 4 children, 6 grandchildren. I think you have 14 now great-grandchildren.
Right.
13 of them were boys until recently. Now you have a
only
girl.
Recently, and now it's 3 years now.
Okay, so it's wonderful. You had a great life together.